Peace and blessing, family. It's your man Maarifa. Welcome to another Maarifa moment where knowledge is reborn. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, and we black. Dig, we got us a great topic today. We're going to be talking about Nubia and the rise of Narmer. But before we do all that, we're going to get these admin notes out the way so you know how we do it. Look at this banner right here. You dig? You see the banner. We need you to like, subscribe, follow, and share all of our social media platforms at Maarifa Asar LLC. The second thing we need you to do is go down here to this link, maarifaasar.com. There's going to be a link also in the description. Go to maarifasar.com right after this video. As soon as it's over, rush over there and get you some fly gear. Join the knowledge movement. I'm rocking the Maarifa Asar gear right now. You should rock it too. So go over to maarifasar.com and find you something fly and make a purchase today. All right, so let's get into our first lesson. Let's go. All right, ancient Nubia. Let's talk about Nubia. All right, so we're going to talk about Nubia and what their contributions were to Kemet and the Nile Valley culture. All right, so you see here the Nubians, they started in this region right here, which is Nubia is modern day Sudan. All right, so anywhere down from, I say, the second cataract, a little bit south of Abu Simbel, all the way down to the sixth cataract. And your cataracts are your waterfalls along the Nile Valley River. So you have, those people that came from this region, these Africans had evolved and moved up north, you know what I'm saying, from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, those Africans, from the Azabi tribe, the Hutu and the Tutsi and the Twa, they had all intermingled and married and had babies and made an advanced African, who had, modernized and evolved into, a greater, African, and moved into this region. And they started settling these lands and they developed these lands and started building cities and states and then became a little bit more, advanced in culture and their civilization had grew. You know what I'm saying? So out of the Nile Valley, they came from the mountain of the moon. You know what I'm saying? In Uganda, the river that flowed out of there, you know what I'm saying, allowed, the Nubians to have a lot of, access to resources and things of that nature because the river was a great source of resource of minerals and, a lot of different plant life that grew in that region. So you see the snow-capped mountains there in the mountain of the moon, as those the snow-capped mountains melt, it melts down into the valley and then goes into the river. Then the river then flows in the northern direction. All right, so that's how we get the concept of lower and upper Kemet because of the elevation of the land. And the mountain of the moons, the elevation is about 19,000 feet above sea level. So, the elevation to the south is higher than the elevation to the north, which is a little bit more flat and desert. You know what I mean? But you can see on the map, how it positions itself, so you have Egypt to the north, which is Kemet, and then you have Sudan, which is Nubia, to the south. All right, and it all starts down the Nile River, begins down with the Blue Nile and the White Nile meeting together in South Sudan and flowing north. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of resources coming out of the Nile River, which allowed that civilization of Africans to flourish and to grow plentiful, and that grew into a great Nile Valley civilization that we're going to be discussing. Okay, so you see the Nubians are clearly African. Here you could tell by their African features and the hairstyles that they have with the dreads, the dark melanated skin, you know what I mean? And these are the paintings and portraits that they depicted on the walls in Sudan, Nubia, and in Kemet. You know what I mean? And they dress very well, and you could tell with the artifacts in which they created. You know what I mean? The different structures and the hairstyles with the dreads and things of that nature, the African features are clearly distinguished that they are African people. All right. So the Kemites to the north and the Nubians to the south in Sudan, were the same people. They were cousins and related to each other, interbred and intermixed with different babies and things that they had. But they distinguished themselves through their dress and their jewelry, how they dressed and the jewelry that they wore. Now, the Nubians had so much gold in the region that they wore the gold a lot. They had the earrings, the gold earrings, and then, the red headdresses that they had. And then, they had the different clothing that they would, wear, and the styles that they would wear would distinguish them from the Kemites to the north. You know what I mean? So Nubia had this great science that they had constructed. They started studying science and they knew mathematics, and then they started being able to build. As architectural structures were being developed, they actually built these structures utilizing mathematics, and then being able to put those things together and building megalithic structures, that are amazing and are still prevalent today. You can go to Sudan and Morocco today in 2021 and see the ruins of these great megalithic structures that were created by these Africans. And in that land, they have over 200, pyramid structures that were built, homes and temples and things of that nature that were built. So a lot of the cultural, not only the agriculture, but the architectural structures had come out of Nubia. So the Kemites to the north owe a lot of their, design ideas and things of that nature they got from, the ancient Nubians. The Nubians also taught them about, the philosophy of the Holy Trinity, the Holy Family, Aset, Asar, and Haru. You know what I mean? So the first Holy Trinity, they revered and venerated. You could tell by the different artifacts that they have, on the wall, of depictions of the goddess and the gods. That all came out of Nubia. The culture and the philosophies and things of that nature came out of Nubia. And then you can tell that Nubia had so much fertile and rich soil land. They were so close, to the Congo region that they got a lot of that rainfall in that area. So the rain was very plentiful and it allowed a lot of the natural resources to grow, like the grain, the fruits and the vegetables and the plant life that grew out of there. But they also had gold and copper in that land, in those minerals resources that they had, and they had limestone, which they would be able to build those megalithic structures, in those structures. So Nubia had a great, abundant source of resources in that area. Sudan is one of the largest countries in Africa, and they pretty much have a large, supply of resources. And you could tell here that they gave tribute, and they bartered and traded back and forth, with different items and things that they had, materials that they were able to barter and trade with, with their cousins to the north. They would give them gold and all type of resources like ebony and, elephant tusk and, different clothing and things of that nature. So they would trade back and forth. They had wood, all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So the Nubians were very plentiful. Now, Nubia is also known for, their great warriors, the bowmen. You know what I'm saying? The great city that they had established initially was Taseti. Taseti was a great fortified city, and it was protected by the Magi. The Nubian Magi were great marksmen, from the bow and arrow that they were able to use, as their weapon of choice, and they were very skilled with using the bow and arrow, so much so that they were respected, by many people, you know what I'm saying, for their, great, skills and ability to use the bow and arrow. You know what I'm saying? Even though they had a lot of fertile land and they had a lot of rich soil, they had to protect that stuff, with their warrior skills. So a lot of those traditions that they received, they got passed down from generation to generation from the Azabi tribe, the Hutus, and the Twa, who were also great hunter gatherers. But the Azabi tribe were one of the best marksmen. So they passed that information down to the Nubians, who took it up north and advanced the skill, you know what I'm saying, of the bow and arrow. They were so advanced and respected, they would depict them on, the stone walls in Kemet. You know what I mean? So a lot of the Nubian warriors were a part of the Kemet army, and they would use them as their, specialists and archers and stuff in order to protect their lands in their region from invaders. All right, so you can see here that the Nubian was depicted here with the little figurines in the Museum of Cairo to show you how great and powerful, that army was and how well respected they were in that region. Okay, so ancient Nubia is, the mother and the birthplace of Kemet. Without Nubia, there would be no Kemet. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people love to look at Kemet as, this great civilization, which it is, but you got to give all of that credit to Nubia because Nubia is where those Africans evolved from. Those Africans came from the south and they went up north, you know what I'm saying, in that direction. They utilized the resources from the river, the Nile River, in order to, grow crops and have a lot of resources and supplies. They can trade back and forth. And then they had the time necessary because they had so much, food and things of that nature. They can start using their time to start studying sciences, mathematics, being able to build architectural structures, you know what I'm saying? So they had a lot of resources and they started utilizing their time to build things, you know what I'm saying? So they utilized their knowledge to build things and build great things, you know what I'm saying? And they passed down philosophies and understanding of life and, with science and food and all different things. The Nubians were, a great, tribe of people, you know what I'm saying? So they also moved up north, in Kemet. So those Nubians had, relation with those in Kemet because they were all the same people. And they had babies and they mixed and matched and stuff like that. And those who went up north had, searched for, larger amounts of land that they wanted to, venture out and expand their territories. So that's the reason how they got up to Kemet. But they couldn't have a civilization in Kemet without first coming through Nubia, which is Sudan. All right. So let's move forward. All right, let's get into Narmer. And we're going to talk about Narmer. He was the very first African pharaoh king in Kemet. Okay, so he was able to unite the Upper and Lower Kemet region and be able to get those states unified as the two lands. Okay, so what we'll discuss about how Narmer was able to be able to put them together and all of his accomplishments that he achieved and the reason why, they went into, this battle and how was able to become the first pharaoh king of the dynastic period. All right, so Narmer, as you can see, here's cartouche. Here is on the king's list in Abydos. You know what I'm saying? So Abydos, the city, as the temple, of Ramses the third. You have the Abydos king's list that is depicted here, and you see his cartouche as the very first cartouche that you will see, in that lineage. There's a great lineage here, as you can see the Abydos king's list, and Ramesses is, telling his son, and Seti the first is telling his son Ramesses about, you know, uh, all of the different kings and dynastic kings who came through Kemet, and all of the lists. You know what I'm saying? So you see there that from that list, all of the kings that Narmer was the first. All right. So Narmer had came from the city of Nikan. Nikan, they had renamed the city, the Greeks did, to Heracleopolis, and it's near Edfu, down in Upper Kemet. All right. So it's a little further south, you know what I'm saying, but just above Sudan, a little bit right in between near Aswan and Edfu. You know what I mean? So that's where he came from. And you can see here, I'm, in that region when I took my pilgrimage to Kemet. I went to the city of Edfu and the temple of Horus, which is Haru, and we visited Edfu. And that city was like the first holy city that they would have, in that region, and they would worship, Haru in that region in those temples, and that's me visiting that area right there. And you can see Haru, the Haru falcon, statue that was depicted throughout that temple region. But this is where, Narmer had came from. This is where he grew up, in Nikan. Now, he also had this other king, it was another king that was that King Scorpion. You know what I'm saying? King Scorpion was the king of Kemet at the time when Narmer, was coming up. And Narmer had unified, the troops, the different tribe leaders. He had unified them and developed this army, to come against, the Scorpion King. And you can see right here the mace head of, the King Scorpion. As you could see, you could tell right here, there's a scorpion that's depicted right there on the image that'll kind of tell you. And then you can see the headdress of the king looks like a bowling pin on his head. This is the crown. You know what I'm saying? The crown that he wore in Kemet, and it was red and things of that nature in, Lower Kemet. So that's how you depict and see, who the Scorpion King was. And then the reason why they have had this issue, Narmer had this issue with the Scorpion King because there was a irrigation problem in Lower Kemet, in Egypt. And they wasn't able to get the resources that they needed from the river. The river wasn't pushing as strong as they wanted to, and they ran out of wood to be able to redirect. You know what I'm saying? Those irrigation systems where they needed to supply that water to. You know what I'm saying? So what they did was, the Scorpion King, it took an army and sent them down south, to Upper Kemet, and started taking some of the wood and the resources in that area. And they were pretty much, stealing stuff. And instead of bargaining, with the people, the Scorpion King was like, yo, this is mine. I'm taking it. This, that, and the third. My people need it. And that kind of upset, a lot of people in that Upper Kemet area down to the south. And then Narmer was able to, galvanize the people, galvanize them to get them together to develop an army, big enough to be able to go back and attack the Scorpion King. You know what I'm saying? Because he wasn't treating the people fairly, and he wasn't being a king for all the people. He was only being a king for certain people, which was being selfish. You know what I'm saying? So Narmer had went up, and you could see his palette. This is Narmer's palette, where he had fought the Scorpion King for 3 days, and he had won this war, and then he was able to unite, Upper and Lower Kemet, and bring them together. The two lands were being able to unite, and it's kind of hard to see, this palette. You know what I'm saying? But you can really see some of the description. It's kind of hard to see some of the description on it, but it tells a story of Narmer and his victory over the Scorpion King and how he was able to defeat, those forces up to the north and be able to unify, Upper and Lower Kemet. As you can tell off to the right, I don't know if you can see this here on this piece of it, the description, you could see Narmer marching in, with, his the woman, the black woman, and she's followed in front by the Twa. The Twa was a part of his army, and they were able to look over the carnage that occurred, and all of the many people that they had killed during the war. And the black woman was taking a look at, and surveying all of the area and seeing what had happened. That's a part of the upper part of that, palette you can see there. And then you can see at the top Heru, the cow mother goddess, so the black woman, was venerated as God, and she was on that, palette as well. And then in the middle, you can see right there this serpent head type of figure animal, which represented the unification of the two lands, okay, Upper and Lower Kemet. And then at the bottom, you can see, a bull-like figure, destroying a man. And that was a depiction of Narmer as the bull, king, and he was able to defeat his enemy, the Scorpion King, and become the new, ruler and the new Pharaoh king in that region. Okay, so you have here Narmer's mace head, and it depicts the tribute that was given, to Narmer as he became, the Pharaoh king of Upper and Lower Kemet. And then before, is a cartoon depiction of it. I don't know if you can really see it. It's very, very low, but if you Google this, you'll see Narmer's mace head. You'll see the depiction of Narmer sitting, in the middle of that, mace head jar, and the description on it, you'll see that they were paying tribute and honor to Narmer. and they were bringing him, all type of riches and spoils with cattle and resources and all things of that nature. But Narmer was also wearing now a different crown on his head. He had like the crown of Upper Kemet as well as the crown of Lower Kemet. And he was being able to unify those two lands because there was an issue between the people, the Kemites and the Lower Kemites. There was beef, between the North and the South. So Narmer was able to unify and bring them together as one land. Okay, so they call themselves the two lands, but he unified the land and brought them together. So he became the very first Pharaoh king. And he had married, Nephhotep, into the region of the north. She was from the north, Kemet, a Kemite woman, and he was a little bit further south. You know what I'm saying? And he married Nephhotep, and they started a family. And then his armies grew. Narmer's armies grew, and they expanded their territories. The Egyptian territory, they had went out north to Canaan, and they conquered the land of Canaan and defeated those Africans. And then they went further south into Nubia, Kush, and defeated Nubia and Kush. And then they became, the area had expanded and it grew, and Narmer, expanded the Egyptian territory. And that was the region in which, he had conquered into. And all of that land was now the Egyptian providence, and all of the laws that was established and all of the culture that was established, through Kemetic cultures had expanded to those regions. So in Canaan, you see a lot of artifacts in Israel, today, that are Egyptian in nature, because Narmer had, pretty much conquered into that region. You know what I'm saying? So they sent a lot of the culture that way. And then Egyptian culture has started, to, see more of their Egyptian structures down in Nubia, down south, further south, because of the expansion of the Kemetic territory from Narmer. And a book that I recommend that you read, that will give you a lot of insight and detail about, this occurrence and what happened and how the story evolved, the African story evolved, from the Azabi tribe into the Nubians, and then ultimately starting into the first dynastic period, is the Nile Valley, Contributions to Civilization by Anthony Browder. This is a very great book. You know what I'm saying? A very book that a great book that I recommend. You picking up and taking a look at and reading about, the Nile Valley civilization and what actually occurred and how the Africans advanced and evolved into a nation. You know what I'm saying? A great civilization had just begun. All right. And we're going to discuss even further how great that civilization was, and what they all accomplished and the things that they were able to do as far as like advancements of science, medicine, herbs, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, philosophy of religions. You know what I'm saying? The creations of, all things. We're going to discuss everything that came out, of the Nile Valley culture and the Africans in that region, and then how they expanded and grew and eventually grew out into the west and to the east and expanded even further. So we're going to get into a lot more. So stay tuned. But that's all we have for tonight. All right, we hope you enjoyed the lesson this evening. But we're going to get a quick reminder out the way real quick. So, like you said, listen, you know how we do it. We need you to like, subscribe, follow, and share all social media platforms at Maarifa Asar LLC. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comment section below and let us know you like this video or not. You know what I'm saying? Also, the video's almost over. Once it's done, go right over to maarifasar.com. Rush over there right after this. Get you some fly gear and make a purchase today. All right. So, with that being said, this is your man Maarifa with another Maarifa moment, and knowledge has been reborn. You know what I'm saying? So the more you know, the more you'll grow, and the better off we all shall be. So until next time, I'll say love and light. Peace. Let's go. live at Seneferu's pyramid. Okay, Seneferu built this